I never thought much of the little drawer in the corner of her writing desk. It had always been locked, ever since we moved into this house 3 years ago. I'd helped her unpack the box it came in, a thrifted antique she claimed she'd fallen in love with the moment she saw it. Pale oak, brass handles, a faint smell of cedar and lavender lingering inside, even now. The rest of the drawers were filled with her usual clutter: stamps, old receipts, extra pens, things she used and forgot. But the bottom right drawer? Always locked. Always the same key she kept on a necklace she rarely took off. It was a quiet obsession of mine, that drawer. An unanswered question that nestled deeper into my thoughts with each passing year. She called it her memory drawer. I remember the first time I asked what was inside. She was brushing her hair, soft lamplight making her look almost ethereal. "Just old letters, journals," she'd said, not looking at me. "Stuff from before I met you. Silly things. Teenage heartbreaks and poetry." I didn't press. Why would I? Everyone's entitled to their privacy. But the drawer was always locked. That necklace never left her neck. Until last week. It happened so subtly, I almost missed it. She left the necklace on the nightstand before a shower, the first time in years. I spotted it as I passed by, the tiny brass key dangling innocently from the chain like it hadn't been hiding something for half a decade. I stared at it, heart beginning to pound with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Suspicion. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it really was just old poetry. But something gnawed at me. It wasn't the drawer itself. It was how fiercely she protected it, how she instinctively touched the key whenever the subject came up. She had no secrets, except this. That night, I couldn't sleep. She lay beside me, breathing slow and even, her back to me, skin glowing in the dim streetlight that bled through the curtains. I stared at the ceiling, each breath loud in my ears. After an hour of pretending to rest, I slid out of bed, barefoot and quiet. The necklace was still on the nightstand. I hesitated. My hand hovered over the key. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. There had been signs, the sudden silences when I entered the room, the quick closing of her laptop, the scent of unfamiliar cologne on her scarf months ago. Things I ignored. Things I now could no longer afford to ignore. I took the key. The drawer opened with a soft, reluctant click. The hinges creaked faintly as I pulled it open, slow, deliberate, like I was peeling away the skin of a lie that had been festering too long. Inside, neatly stacked, were letters. Dozens of them. Cream-colored envelopes, aged but carefully preserved, all tied with a blue ribbon that had frayed around the edges. Atop the stack sat a faded photograph. A man. He looked to be in his early 30s, maybe younger. Square jaw, deep-set eyes. Familiar, though I couldn't say why. The photo was old, yellowed, the edges soft and curling. My breath caught. Each envelope bore the same name in elegant script: Elliot. Not dad, not grandfather or friend, just Elliot. I picked up the top envelope and turned it over in my hands. There was a date in the corner, April 2nd, 2017, 2 months before we met. I opened it, careful not to tear the paper. The handwriting was hers. I recognized the long, looping letters, the way she dotted her eyes like tiny exclamation points. But the words. I can't keep doing this. Every time I see you, it gets harder to pretend. I try to be normal. I try to smile and nod and say all the right things. But inside, I'm unraveling. You pull me in without trying, and I lose myself every time. My stomach tightened. She never wrote me letters like that. Never used words that bled like that. I opened the next letter, and then another. Each one chipped away at my foundation. They weren't notes from a distant past. They were love letters. Yearning, raw, desperate. And worse, they weren't all dated before we met. I found one from last year. March 3rd, 2024. I read it twice, my hands trembling. I saw you across the park today. I told myself not to go near you. But you smiled, and I couldn't breathe. I don't know how long I can keep this up. I'm tired of pretending I'm happy. He doesn't know me like you do. That was me. I dropped the letter back into the drawer, but I couldn't stop. I went through each one, unable to help myself. There were over 30, maybe more. A timeline of deceit. The earliest ones were wistful, filled with regret and longing. The more recent ones? Intimate. Visceral. She had poured herself into these pages, preserved them, protected them like relics of a sacred ritual. The last one was unsigned. A scrap of paper torn from a notebook, hastily folded and shoved beneath the others. I'll see you tomorrow. Same place. Noon. I don't care who sees anymore. No date. Just those words. I sat back, the drawer still open, my body sinking into the chair. My hands were cold. My chest felt hollow. She was still in contact with him. Not just in her heart, in the real world. I suddenly heard a noise, the soft creak of the floorboard outside our bedroom. My head snapped up, pulse racing. Had I woken her? No footsteps followed. Maybe just the house settling. But I didn't take any chances. I slipped the letters back in, careful to arrange them exactly as I'd found them. Tied the ribbon. Closed the drawer. Click. The lock turned easily, like it knew the damage was done. I placed the key back on the nightstand and returned to bed, body rigid beside hers. I stared at the ceiling again, the darkness now thick with accusation. My wife had been writing love letters to another man, and she had never stopped. I didn't sleep. Morning came heavy and pale. She stirred beside me, stretching like nothing had changed. She smiled, kissed my cheek, said coffee. I nodded, numb. While she moved down the hall, humming some old song under her breath, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the drawer. Now I had questions. Now I had names. Now I had a time. No more suspicions. Just facts. I would find out who Elliot was, and then I would decide what came next. The morning after I opened the drawer, everything felt unreal. I moved through the house like I was sleepwalking, the taste of betrayal thick in my mouth. She handed me a mug of coffee like always, smiled like always, kissed me lightly before stepping into her heels and grabbing her purse, like it was any other Monday. Don't forget Sonia has ballet today, she said over her shoulder. I'll pick up groceries after work. I nodded. My voice wouldn't come. Then the door shut behind her, and I was alone. I left the coffee untouched. Instead, I returned to the drawer. I didn't open it. I couldn't risk disrupting anything. But I didn't need to. I'd memorized the name. Elliot. I'd replayed that final note in my head a dozen times. I'll see you tomorrow. Same place. Noon. Tomorrow, according to that note, was today. I had 4 hours. I dressed quickly, plain clothes that wouldn't draw attention. I packed a pair of sunglasses and my old DSLR camera, the one I used to take family portraits in the early days, and slung it across my shoulder like I was just another dad out enjoying the city. I didn't know exactly where she would meet him, but the note mentioned a park. Only one park sat within walking distance of her office. Garrett Square Park. It was the kind of place people went for lunch breaks in sunshine. Children on jungle gyms. Couples under sycamores. Joggers circling the perimeter. I knew it well. We used to picnic there on weekends, when we were still building the kind of marriage I thought would last forever. I arrived at 11:42. I sat on a bench by the fountain, camera in my lap, a book open in one hand. I didn't read a word. I watched and waited. The sun broke through the clouds in weak beams. The wind tugged at my collar. Every passerby became a question. And then I saw her. She emerged from the sidewalk like a vision walking straight out of another life. Hair down, not tied like it usually was for work. A soft cardigan over her usual blouse, as if she'd dressed for comfort rather than code. She glanced around. And then she smiled. He was already there. Elliot. He stepped out from under the elms near the far path. Taller than me. Athletic build. Salt and pepper hair, combed back with careless confidence. No ring on his hand. My camera snapped once. Then again. They embraced. Not a polite hug. Not something you'd offer a friend. It lingered. Her head on his chest. His hand low on her back. My stomach twisted. I took photo after photo, each one a little knife. They sat on the bench across from mine, angled away. Close. Too close. She laughed, a real laugh. One I hadn't heard in months. He reached for her hand. She let him. They talked for nearly an hour. I couldn't hear the words, only the gestures, the smiles, the subtle touches that said more than anything they could have said aloud. When he brushed her cheek with his thumb, she closed her eyes, as if memorizing the moment. My hands clenched around the camera. I could feel the plastic bending. When they finally stood, she checked her watch and touched his chest. A gentle press, familiar. They kissed, not on the lips, but near them. Not a goodbye, but a promise. Then she walked away. He stayed. I let her disappear down the sidewalk before standing. I didn't follow her. I followed him. Elliot strolled toward the west exit of the park, sunglasses perched on his head. He moved like someone comfortable in his skin, like he belonged anywhere he stood. I shadowed him from across the street, keeping my pace slow, my camera tucked beneath my coat. He turned onto a side street lined with brownstones and coffee shops, eventually ducking into a bookstore cafe. I waited, watching through the glass. He ordered tea, sat with a novel, crossed his legs like he had nowhere else to be. That kind of confidence, it made my blood boil. I didn't go in. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed more. Back home, I printed the photos, pinned them to the wall of the study behind a locked door. I arranged them in order, her arriving, him waiting, the embrace, the hand-holding, the kiss. The sequence of betrayal, frozen in glossy stills. I returned to the drawer that evening when she went for a run. I read more letters. They stretched back years. The oldest one dated just 4 months into our marriage. I'd been planning our anniversary weekend. She'd been writing about Elliot. She called him the one that got away. She wrote about running into him by chance, reconnecting, lunches that turned into long drives. The ache of being with someone who understood her in ways I didn't. Each line carved away a part of me. I sat there in the quiet, the hum of the refrigerator in the background, and realized something chilling. This hadn't been a sudden mistake. It had been deliberate, maintained, protected. This wasn't a fling. It was a parallel life she kept alive like a secret garden, tended in the shadows of our home. And I was the stranger in it. By the time she returned, cheeks flushed and breathing heavy, I had everything hidden again. I smiled, asked how her run was, kissed her forehead when she passed. But I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and whispered her name like a curse. Caroline, my wife, the mother of my children, the woman who told me I was everything she needed, who'd promised me forever with vows I now realized meant nothing. The next morning, I visited my friend Alan. He was a retired PI, once hired by Fortune 500 types to dig into dirty secrets and corporate espionage. Now he mostly drank too much and played poker with old war buddies. But when I told him what I needed, he sobered instantly. "You want me to find out who this guy is?" he asked, tapping the photo of Elliot. I nodded. "You want dirt. I want everything." Alan looked me over, eyes narrowed. "You going to confront her?" "Not yet." "You going to confront him?" I didn't answer. He folded the photo, placed it in his coat pocket. "Give me a week." I need it in 3 days. He raised an eyebrow, but nodded. 3 days. Back home, Caroline was making pancakes with our daughter. She looked up and smiled, flipping a spatula. I watched her like a stranger. Every gesture, every smile, every laugh, all of it felt counterfeit now. I wanted to scream, to tear down the facade and shout the truth into her perfect little world. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to see how far the roots of her betrayal went. I needed to know if Elliot had been here, in our home, near our children. I started checking old photos, scanning backgrounds, vacation pictures, birthday parties, school events. And then I found it. A group shot from our son's kindergarten orientation, parents milling around in the background. And there, near the hallway, almost out of frame, Elliot. The same stance, same face. He had been there, watching, smiling, waiting. I sat in the dark with the photo in my hand, the only sound the tick of the clock on the mantel. My hands trembled. Rage boiled beneath the surface. This wasn't an affair. This was invasion. And I would burn it all down before I let him take another step into my life. Alan called me on the 3rd day, just after noon. "His name is Elliot Mercer," he said. "Architect. Divorced. No kids. Lives in a condo about 10 blocks from your house." I stood by the window as he spoke, watching Caroline in the yard, pulling weeds from the garden bed like she had nothing to hide. Alan's voice continued. He used to work in Manhattan. Big firms, high-rise projects. Moved back here 6 years ago. That's right around the time you got married, isn't it? "Yeah," I said. "It is." "There's more," he added. "They dated in college. Same university. Split when he took a job abroad. She stayed." That part I didn't know. Or maybe I just never asked. She left him, or he left her. I asked quietly. "Depends on who you ask," Alan replied. "But one thing's clear. They reconnected a few months after he moved back." "You want the whole file?" "Yes," I said. "Drop it at the office." I ended the call, but I didn't move from the window. Caroline knelt in the dirt, laughing as our daughter ran past, chasing a butterfly. Her hand brushed Sonia's cheek, and for a moment, it was as if nothing had changed. But everything had. That afternoon, I left work early and drove past Elliot's building. A red brick complex, well-kept, discreet. His name was on the buzzer. Mercer, Unit 3B. I didn't press it. I wanted to. I wanted to storm up the stairs and demand answers. But I didn't. Instead, I sat in the car and watched the windows. I didn't know what I expected. A glimpse of her through the blinds? A flash of guilt in the curtains? Of course, there was nothing. Only stillness. That night, Caroline was different. Restless. She tapped her phone more often than usual. Glanced at the clock. Twice, she started to speak and stopped herself. Eventually, I asked, "Everything okay?" She looked up. You've been quiet." She smiled, too quickly. "Just tired. Long day." I nodded, pretending to believe it. I noticed the faint outline of the necklace beneath her shirt, the one with the key. She'd started wearing it again, just like before. After she went to bed, I retrieved Alan's file from the envelope he'd left at my office. I opened it slowly, like it might burn me. There were photos. Surveillance shots, mostly. Elliot leaving his condo. Elliot buying groceries. Elliot at the park. And one more. One that made my blood run cold. Elliot, standing outside our house. It was from 3 months ago. Early spring. He stood across the street, half-shadowed by a tree. Staring. Waiting. I flipped the photo over. Alan's handwriting read, April 14th, 3:27 p.m. I checked my calendar. That was the day I'd driven Sonia to her pediatrician. I'd been gone less than an hour. Caroline had stayed behind, claiming to clean out the closets. My hands clenched. I went to the drawer again. This time, I opened every letter. The early ones were filled with longing. She wrote about waking up beside a stranger and feeling like a ghost in her own marriage. She said she tried to love me, to forget Elliot. But every time they crossed paths, something inside her ignited. The letters became bolder over time, more detailed. She described their secret lunches, their drives, the way she missed him before he was even gone. One note stood out, dated just 2 weeks ago. "I need more time. He suspects nothing, but I think he's watching me. I'm sorry, Elliot. I want to be with you. I just don't know how yet." My vision blurred. I closed the drawer, locked it. I couldn't confront her yet. I needed leverage. So I waited. I watched. Over the next few days, I noticed patterns. She left work late, twice, each time unaccounted for by her office calendar. Once, she said she was running to the store but came back without bags. Another time, she claimed she had a dentist appointment. I checked. No such appointment existed. I cloned her phone again, updating the backup. Still no suspicious texts. She must have kept that side of her life to Elliot's number alone. But I found something else, a new calendar entry. M.E. Tuesday, 12 o'clock. M.E. Mercer, Elliot. She was still seeing him. Still lying. The next morning, I sent our kids to my sister's for the weekend. Told Caroline I needed time to work on a proposal in peace. She kissed my cheek. Smiled. I spent the weekend building something else entirely. I printed the photos. Enlarged them. Mounted them on foam boards. Photos of her and Elliot in the park. Her hand in his. The embrace. The kiss. And the one of him outside our home. I added copies of the letters. Highlighted passages. Then I rented the community hall down the street. The same one we'd used for James's birthday last year. I told her we were attending a neighborhood fundraiser. She wore a floral dress. I held her hand the whole way there. When we walked in, I guided her toward the main room. And then I let go. The lights were low, the walls lined with photos, the letters enlarged on canvas. A projector showed a loop of video footage, grainy clips from my hidden cameras, showing her slipping pills from her purse, hiding the second phone, checking her reflection before she left the house. She froze. The air was thick with silence. There were no guests. No fundraiser. Only us. And the truth. She turned to me slowly. What is this?" I didn't speak. She stepped closer to a photo, the one of her and Elliot on the park bench. She stared at it as if seeing herself for the first time. "This isn't," she faltered. "You went through my drawer." "Yes," I said finally. Her mouth opened, then closed. "How much do you know?" "All of it." Silence. I watched her chest rise and fall. Her eyes flickered from one display to another. The lies laid bare. "Is this revenge?" she asked, voice brittle. "No," I said. "Not yet." Her eyes locked on mine. For the first time, I saw fear. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. "I don't know yet." I turned and walked out. She didn't follow. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. My phone buzzed once. Twice. I didn't check it. Later that night, I heard her come in. She didn't speak, didn't move past the front hallway. Eventually, I heard her cry, a sound low and desperate, like something wounded. I didn't go to her. I just sat there, staring at the drawer I had once feared. Now, I feared nothing. The silence in our house wasn't peaceful. It was dense, like smoke that refused to clear. For 3 days after I exposed the truth in that hall, Caroline and I moved like shadows past each other. She didn't sleep in our bed. I didn't ask where she slept. We exchanged no words, not even about the kids. I sat with the letters again, rereading them, looking for something I hadn't seen. Some clue, some turning point, some indication of when she had stopped choosing me. But the truth was simpler than that. She'd never stopped loving him. She just tried to love me, too. I wasn't angry anymore. Not like I had been. I felt hollow, like a house whose foundation had rotted unnoticed, and now sat lopsided, barely standing. The camera footage confirmed what I feared. She'd brought him to our home once. Not inside, just the backyard. When I'd taken the kids to a birthday party last summer, she'd told me she was staying behind with a headache. The camera had caught them, together, talking beneath the patio lights. She smiled at him the way she used to smile at me. That was enough. I filed for separation the next morning. She found the papers on the kitchen counter. When I returned from work, she was waiting, eyes rimmed red. "You're not even going to talk to me?" she asked, voice hoarse. I shrugged off my coat. "Talk about what? You said everything in your letters." Her face crumpled slightly. "That was before. I didn't think you'd ever read them." I stared at her. "That's the problem." She sat, hands trembling in her lap. "You don't understand." "No," I said. "I finally do. You were always good to me," she whispered. But I felt invisible. I felt like I was living someone else's life. I looked at her, this woman who had once held my entire heart. "And so you created a second one. With him." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "It wasn't just him. It wasn't just sex. He reminded me of who I was before we had children, before we settled into routines, before the grocery lists and the daycare bills and the quiet." I said nothing. "I don't know why I kept writing him letters," she continued. "Maybe because I couldn't say the things out loud. Maybe because part of me knew I was wrong and didn't want to stop." I turned to the window. The garden outside had weeds again. Everything we built, untended, rotting. "I loved you," she said behind me. "Part of me still does." I looked at her. "But not all of you. And that's what killed us." She didn't deny it. The next evening, Alan called again. "I did some more digging," he said. "About Elliot?" "Yeah. Thought you should know. He's been through this before." I sat down. "What do you mean?" "He had an affair with a married woman 5 years ago. Different town. Different name. But the same pattern. The same, I just want to be with her nonsense." She left her husband. Elliot stayed with her 6 months, tops. Then he ghosted. My mouth went dry. He's a collector. Seems that way. He likes what he can't have. I closed my eyes. The ache in my chest returned. Alan cleared his throat. "Want me to talk to him?" "No," I said slowly. "I'll do it." That Friday, I went to Elliot's condo. The doorman recognized me from my previous visit and buzzed me in. I knocked on 3B with a calm I didn't feel. He answered in a gray sweater and jeans. Polished. Pleasant. "Can I help?" He stopped when he saw me. I didn't speak right away. Just looked at him. Looked into the face of the man who'd unraveled my life and never once asked for permission. "Caroline's husband," I said finally. He nodded, jaw tightening. I figured. We stood in silence for a moment. Then he stepped aside. "You want to come in?" I did. His condo was spotless. Sparse. Art on the walls, not a family photo in sight. I imagined this was where she came sometimes, to escape, to be someone else. "She told me you knew," he said as I Saturday. "She told you I saw the drawer?" He gave a small, smug smile. "No. She told me you staged that little gallery exhibit. Very creative." I ignored the jab. "Why?" He raised an eyebrow. "Why what? Why her? Why this?" He shrugged. "We had history. She reached out after we ran into each other at a conference. Said she'd made a mistake marrying too soon. Said she missed who she was before all this." "All this being what? A husband? Children?" "Responsibility," he said. "Predictability." I leaned forward. "She has a family." "She had a longing," he replied. "And I filled it." I stared at him. "And what happens when that longing fades? When she's just a woman again, not some fantasy in your bed?" He looked away. "That's what happened with Melissa, right?" I asked. "And Cassie before her." His head snapped back to me. Yeah, I said. Alan did good work. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I think you get off on being the escape, I said. But you're not the destination. He stood. If you came here to make yourself feel superior, you've wasted your time. I stood too. I didn't come here for that. Then what? I came to tell you, I said, stepping closer, that you didn't win. His brow furrowed. You took something from me, but you don't get to keep it. You don't get to keep her. He scoffed. She's not yours to control. No, I said, but she's not yours to ruin, either. I stepped back. She already filed the withdrawal letter. I added. What? She told me yesterday. Said she was done. With me. With you. With the lies. His face paled slightly. She said you wanted her to leave everything behind. I said. But you never offered her anything real in return. He said nothing. She's keeping the house. I finished. I'm moving out next week. I turned to the door. Wait, he called behind me. I paused. He looked uncertain, smaller than before. Do you think she ever loved me? I looked at him. Yes, but you didn't love her. You loved the story. I left. The next week, I packed my things. Caroline didn't say much, just helped when I asked. She gave me space. On the morning I left, I found a letter on the kitchen table. Her handwriting. No envelope. I didn't read it. I slid it into a drawer and locked it. Let her have her last word. I'd already found mine. I rented a small apartment in the city. Sparse like Elliot's. But mine. The kids visited on weekends. I kept the camera, but no longer pointed it at anyone. I took photos of bridges, rust, rain on windows, things that were broken and beautiful at the same time. The kind of things that didn't lie. Then, one afternoon, I received a call from Sonia's school. There's someone here, the administrator said. She says she's your daughter's aunt, but she's not on the list. I frowned. What's her name? There was a pause. Melissa Mercer. The name chilled me. Elliot's ex. The one before Caroline. Don't let her leave, I said, grabbing my keys. I drove like a man possessed. If she was here, this wasn't over. When I arrived at the school, Melissa was seated in the lobby, legs crossed neatly, a scarf knotted around her neck despite the warm October air. She stood as I approached, and I could tell immediately, she wasn't here for my daughter. This was about him. Elliot. I stepped between her and the front desk. I don't know what you think you're doing, but I'm not here to cause trouble, she said quickly, raising both hands. But you need to know something. I stared at her. Not here, she added. Somewhere private. I looked to the receptionist, who was already watching us like a hawk. Wait outside, I said. She nodded and walked out with a confidence that made me uneasy. I followed a minute later, my thoughts buzzing. We crossed the parking lot in silence, and I led her around the corner to a small alley behind the school. It smelled of pine mulch and exhaust. Melissa turned to face me. Your wife, she started. Ex-wife, I corrected. She's not the first. You know that. I know enough. No, she said firmly. You don't. I thought I did too, until I found what he kept. I raised an eyebrow. Letters, she said. Hundreds of them. From women. Some he never even slept with. Some he pursued, charmed, got to write to him, then discarded. The air went still. He keeps the letters, she said. Files them by name, date, place. Like a collector. He doesn't love them. He studies them. A chill spread across my skin. I only found them because he got careless. Left his Dropbox open on my laptop. She laughed bitterly. I thought I was special. I wasn't. None of us were. She pulled something from her purse, a flash drive. You should see this. I'm not interested in his little archive, I said, stepping back. You should be. Because your wife, Caroline, was one of them. But she wasn't just a participant. She became the favorite. The center. Melissa stepped closer. Do you know what he said about her in his notes? The one who almost ruined the game. The one I almost kept. I said nothing. Almost, she repeated. Because he doesn't stay. Not with any of us. I took the flash drive. I didn't want it, but something told me I'd regret not knowing. She reached into her purse again and pulled out a small brown envelope. I mailed these to her last week, but I doubt she showed you. Inside were photos. Grainy, dated. Caroline and Elliot at a hotel. A motel. A cabin. Time stamped over the course of our marriage. One of them showed her crying into his chest. Another showed him walking away, suitcase in hand, while she stood at the doorway barefoot, like she was begging him not to leave. Why are you doing this? I asked. Melissa's smile was thin. Because he never learns. Because every time he gets away with it, women like me get left bleeding while men like you think we were the problem. She stepped back. Good luck. She left without another word. That night, I opened the drive. It was worse than she described. A spreadsheet cataloged every woman Elliot had been with. Names, cities, durations, outcomes. Under Caroline, there were notes. Married. 2 kids. Hesitant at first. Rekindled after coffee meeting. Letters began 3 weeks later. Another entry. Finally ready to leave him. Might become permanent. And finally, panicked after he confronted her. Says she's cutting ties. Recommend disengaging. Risk of exposure. That was dated the day after I confronted him. I stared at those lines until the words blurred. She didn't just betray me. He used her. I thought I hated her. Now I wasn't sure if she deserved pity. I called her the next morning. Told her we needed to meet. Neutral place. No kids. She agreed without hesitation. We met at the Botanical Gardens, a quiet place, away from neighbors and memories. She wore a sweater I'd bought her 2 birthdays ago. It hung loose now, like she'd shrunk inside it. I got a visit, I said. From Melissa. Her face fell. She gave me the drive. The files. Caroline didn't speak. He kept notes on you. On all of you. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know. I believe you, I said softly. But that doesn't change what happened. She nodded. I wasn't going to tell you. But after the gallery, after everything, I called him. I stayed quiet. I told him it was over. That I couldn't do it anymore. That I had ruined too much. And she looked at her hands. He didn't fight for me. Of course he didn't. He thanked me, she whispered. For the game. That hit her harder than anything I could have said. I was angry at you, she continued. Because I felt forgotten. Because you stopped writing me notes. Because we stopped having dinner that wasn't microwaved. Because I was just a mother, not a woman. I didn't respond. I know it's not your fault, she said. But back then, it felt like it was. You didn't come to me, I said. You wrote to him. I know. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she said, what happens now? I moved forward, I said. With the kids. With my life. Without you. She nodded slowly. I don't hate you, I added. But I can't rebuild something that was never mine to begin with. She flinched. You were always mine. I just forgot how to be yours. I stood. She didn't follow. Take care of yourself, I said. I meant it. The months that followed were slow. Quiet. Sometimes lonely. But there was peace in it. The kind that comes when you finally stop bleeding and realize you survived. The kids adjusted. They didn't know the details, just that mommy and daddy were better in different homes. They still saw her. I didn't speak ill of her. I didn't have to. Time told the truth. One day, James asked, did you and Mom stop loving each other? I paused, then said, no. But sometimes, love changes. And we weren't very good at keeping up. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Kids are sharper than we give them credit for. As for Elliot, last I heard, he moved again. Left behind a trail of broken stories and torn letters, like he always did. But I no longer cared. The drawer now sits empty. The letters? Burned. Not in anger, in closure. The desk remains, a relic of what was. A reminder that love without honesty is just performance. And betrayal, no matter how carefully hidden, eventually finds air. One evening, as rain tapped softly on the windows, I found myself writing. Just a page. Not to her. Not to him. To myself. A simple line. You gave your heart to someone who didn't know how to hold it. But you learned how to take it back. I folded the paper and slid it into the now unlocked drawer. It didn't click shut this time. It didn't need to.